It began with a fleeting glance but spiraled into a deadly dance. Love and loyalty clash as a family secret threatens to consume them all. Who can you trust when monsters wear familiar faces? Dive into the shadows. This is their story. It was just a simple passing encounter, yet it sparked an irresistible connection between two hearts. What seemed like a fleeting glance with no future entanglements unexpectedly turned into something more when the two crossed paths again, this time in a boxing ring. Tonight, Benny and his older brother Theo visited the amusement park. However, they weren't there for the rides. They were scouting for potential targets. Theo and his girlfriend were enthusiastically mingling and chatting up girls, but Benny seemed entirely disinterested. He quietly observed everything around him, as if the lively chaos had nothing to do with him. Not wanting to see his younger brother looking so lifeless, Theo dragged him to a nearby boxing gym, urging him to step into the ring and let off some steam. Then he put on the gloves and slowly walked to the center of the ring. To his surprise, his opponent turned out to be a woman he had recently fallen for at first sight. When Zelda saw Benny, she froze in place, equally stunned. She hadn't expected the boy who had stirred her heart to appear before her in such a way. They stared at each other, dumbfounded. But this was a boxing match, and a winner had to be decided. At the referee's signal, the match officially began. Tasting his own blood, Benny's expression changed. He turned to Zelda and launched a fierce counterattack. At that moment, Zelda was no longer just someone who made his heart flutter. She had become prey in his eyes. Although Benny's punches packed considerable power, he wasn't a trained fighter. In the end, Zelda, with her professional background, sent him flying with a single kick. After delivering a final heavy blow, Zelda was declared the winner. As the daughter of the boxing gym's owner, she had been training since childhood. Any challenger without proper experience, man or woman, was no match for her. Yet seeing Benny with blood streaming from his nose and mouth, Zelda felt an indescribable pang of guilt. She took a cold shower to calm her restless mind. But just as she was hanging up her towel, Benny suddenly appeared behind her. He slowly walked up to Zelda, shy yet trying to appear composed, and finally spoke what was on his mind. He confessed that Zelda was the most captivating girl he had ever encountered in his long life. Thinking he was joking, Zelda asked how old he was. Benny immediately blurted out, 287 years old. Though Zelda laughed it off as a joke, Benny nervously swallowed hard. Before they could continue their conversation, Theo appeared out of nowhere and called Benny away. Zelda, curious, decided to follow the two brothers, and discovered them chatting with a group of young girls. Although not being invited left Zelda feeling sour, her determination to see Benny led her to hatch a plan. She pretended to accidentally bump into one of the girls and easily swiped the invitation from her hands. That evening, Zelda put on a stunning party look, complete with glowing makeup and a sparkling mini dress. Sneaking out while her father and older brother weren't paying attention, she followed the map on the invitation to a secluded mansion on the outskirts of town. However, the location gave off an eerie and foreboding vibe. Just as she began to wonder if she had the wrong place, the iron gate creaked open on its own. Zelda walked for several minutes before spotting a building bathed in an otherworldly blue glow. Following the light, she descended a long staircase and finally arrived at the party. Weaving through the crowded throng of guests, she spotted Benny. To her delight, they began dancing to the rhythm of the music, their movements bringing them closer together. But just as the distance between them narrowed, Benny's face turned pale with fear. He abruptly pushed Zelda away, urgently telling her to leave immediately. Confused and alarmed, Zelda was jostled into a corner. In the flickering lights, she caught sight of Theo's girlfriend, who was bearing sharp, gleaming fangs and sinking them into another girl's neck. Terrified, Zelda bolted, running as fast as she could up the stairs. No matter how far she ran, she couldn't seem to escape the labyrinth-like mansion. Theo's girlfriend followed at a leisurely pace. By the time Theo arrived, Zelda had already escaped. His girlfriend, however, had been impaled through the heart by a decorative sword on a statue below. With no witnesses to the act, no one knew who the culprit was. Overwhelmed with grief, Theo vowed to uncover the killer, but his mourning was interrupted when his mother returned with his younger sister. Rather than consoling him, she berated him for hosting such a reckless party that led to such a tragedy. Before dawn, Theo carried his girlfriend's body to a chamber. While the others stood in the shadows wearing dark sunglasses, he lingered near the body, unwilling to part with her. Just as the first rays of sunlight crept into the room, Benny rushed over and pulled his brother away. Moments later, the body on the stone slab was engulfed in flames. For vampires who had lived thousands of years, seeing one of their kind reduced to ashes in this manner was the ultimate humiliation. Theo was convinced his girlfriend's death was no accident, and vowed to find the killer at any cost. His determination for revenge became the greatest obstacle between Benny and Zelda. Clutching the bracelet he had torn from his girlfriend's wrist, Theo let the scorching sunlight burn his hand. But even the searing pain couldn't numb the agony of losing his love. Theo's unrelenting quest for vengeance left Benny uneasy, as he had already deduced that Zelda was the killer. However, there was another side to Zelda, one Benny had no clue about. On the other side, Zelda fled home in a panic, hurriedly hiding her blood-stained clothes. However, her father and older brother discovered her suspicious behavior. Left with no choice, she confessed the truth, that she had accidentally killed a vampire. Her father listened with a grave expression, and revealed a family secret that had been kept for over 2 decades. Beneath the guise of running a boxing gym, their family had been vampire hunters for generations. For hundreds of years their family had carried the sacred mission of hunting down and eliminating these bloodthirsty creatures. Zelda, however, was unwilling to accept this legacy, as it meant cutting ties with Benny and becoming mortal enemies. She felt torn between her family's duty and her own heart. As she sank into icy water, trying to calm her emotions, Benny quietly appeared behind her. Zelda quickly shoved Benny behind the RV, worried that her father might find him and take action. Once her father left, she secretly led Benny to a secluded corner. Holding his hand, Zelda caught Benny off guard. He had assumed his identity as a vampire would scare her away, and he had come tonight intending to say goodbye. But when Benny revealed the truth about himself, Zelda was unfazed. Although Zelda was fully aware of their opposing natures, her feelings for Benny only deepened. She confessed to him that she had accidentally pushed Theo's girlfriend off the ledge the night before. Benny reassured her, saying no one else would ever find out. Yet, for her safety, Benny decided it was best to end their relationship, even though it pained him deeply. His decision left Zelda utterly heartbroken. Benny too felt the weight of Zelda's unspoken pain, but the path before them seemed inevitable. Returning home, he opened a fridge full of blood bags, only to be interrupted by his younger cousin, who asked him to tuck her into bed. After he did so, however, she hinted that what she wanted wasn't merely sibling affection. Meanwhile, Zelda's father was training her in the art of vampire hunting. He explained that myths about garlic and crucifixes were nonsense. The only things that could kill vampires were sunlight and a wooden stake through the heart. Handing her a stake and hammer, he instructed her to aim for the heart of the dummy on the ground. Zelda hesitated, overwhelmed by the thought of having to use these tools against Benny. Her heart felt as if it were being torn apart. Neither her father nor her brother noticed her inner turmoil as they prepared to infiltrate Benny's mansion. They donned masks and brought their tools, knowing that daytime was when vampires rested, making it the perfect time to strike. The trio broke into the mansion, first discovering a stash of blood bags in a refrigerator. Without hesitation, her brother punctured all the bags, spilling their contents everywhere. The three continued searching the house but found no sign of anyone. At the same time, Benny and Theo were at their mother's office, a stand-alone building in the city center. From the outside, it looked like any ordinary office building, but its specially designed glass completely blocked out sunlight, making it a perfect refuge during the day. On the surface, Benny's mother appeared to be a compassionate philanthropist, known for establishing specialized funds aimed at curing cancer and Alzheimer's disease. She encouraged patients suffering from these conditions to donate blood, claiming it would contribute to medical research. In reality, the collected blood served as the essential sustenance for their vampire clan. Today, she summoned her 2 sons to her office because of the fallout from the recent party. One of the victims, who had been bitten to death, turned out to be the daughter of a high-ranking official. She ordered the brothers to clean up the mess and ensure no further trouble came her way. However, since the death of his girlfriend, Theo had been consumed by hatred. He approached the detective in charge of the case, a woman he had worked with before. With just a sniff, Theo could tell she was suffering from cancer. He promised to help her achieve eternal life as a vampire if she found out who had killed his girlfriend. The detective, one of the few who knew the family's true identity, had previously helped Theo handle several difficult situations in exchange for money. She believed every word he said without question. Benny, however, couldn't understand why so many people desired immortality. To him, Eternal life felt more like a curse. Theo had never agreed with his brother's viewpoint, but after losing his girlfriend, he felt as if his own heart had died. Nevertheless, he encouraged Benny to move forward and hoped he might find true love again someday. Meanwhile, at the mansion, Zelda stumbled upon a photo of Benny with another woman. She also discovered Benny's younger cousin hiding under a table. Assuming the girl was just a teenager, Zelda removed her mask and tried to comfort her gently. Little did she know, the young girl had already lived for over a century. Despite her vampiric strength, the cousin was ultimately overpowered by Zelda's father and older brother, who pinned her to the ground. However, in Zelda's eyes, she still appeared to be a defenseless child. Zelda hesitated, unable to bring herself to harm her. While she wavered, the sound of a door opening suddenly came from downstairs. It was Benny and Theo, returning home from the company. The brothers were met with chaos. The blood bags in the fridge had been completely destroyed, and the mansion was in disarray. Thankfully, their cousin had managed to free herself and survive the attack. Based on her description of the intruders, Benny immediately suspected Zelda's involvement. The cross left behind during the struggle further confirmed Theo's suspicions. On the way home, Zelda's father revealed a shocking truth. Zelda's mother had been brutally murdered by vampires years ago. As soon as the sun set, Benny rushed to Zelda's home to confirm his suspicions. To his dismay, he found himself cornered by Zelda's father and brother. Thinking quickly, Benny claimed to be a college student, writing a paper on women in traditionally male-dominated professions, with Zelda's career as a boxer being a prime example. Although Zelda was upset by Benny's attempt to draw a clear boundary between them, she chose not to expose his lie. Using the pretext of granting him an interview, she led him away from the RV to a safer location. Benny then brought Zelda to meet someone, his human girlfriend of several decades. The woman now lay in bed, her body covered in tubes, unable to move. She was quietly awaiting the arrival of death. Benny's purpose in bringing Zelda here was to show her the harsh reality of being with him. A life with him meant living in the shadows, and eventually, Zelda would end up just like his current girlfriend. Benny admitted that he regretted his decision from decades ago. If he hadn't been selfish, his girlfriend could have had a normal life, marrying, having children, and enjoying a perfect family. However, the girlfriend, despite her frail condition, reassured them. She had no regrets about spending her life loving Benny, and was even happy for him, knowing he had found someone new to love. She encouraged Zelda to follow her heart and not be swayed by Benny's self-deprecating words. Over the decades, she had never regretted choosing Benny. Even if time could turn back, she would still choose to love him. With her blessing, Zelda and Benny decided to abandon their fears and face the future together. They went to the rooftop of Benny's family skyscraper, where the night sky framed their intimate moment. Their hearts grew closer, and Benny's desire for Zelda was unmistakable. However, he was terrified of losing control and harming her. Unfazed, Zelda cut her skin and offered her bleeding wrist to Benny. He drank deeply, his pupils shifting to an amber hue. But under Zelda's soft reassurance, he quickly regained his composure, and the two completed the most profound connection between them. Afterward, neither of them returned home. Instead, they embraced the night and celebrated their union in a whirlwind of festivities. To everyone's surprise, Benny made an unexpected decision. In front of a cheering crowd of strangers, the two exchanged rings and officially became husband and wife. Unbeknownst to them, danger was looming. Earlier, Theo's investigation had led him to a troubling discovery. The cross left behind at the mansion belonged to Zelda's brother. Furious, Theo went to the family boxing gym to confront him. There, he challenged Zelda's brother to a fight, utterly overwhelming him and leaving him defenseless. Seeing the dire situation, Zelda's father quickly deduced Theo's true identity. Smashing a chair with one swift kick, he armed himself with a sharp wooden stake, prepared to defend himself. Theo, noticing their familiarity with vampire hunting techniques, guessed that they were the ones who had broken into the mansion. Enraged, he unleashed a flurry of punches at the father and son. Suddenly, the gym janitor appeared from behind. His cousin unexpectedly arrived. She revealed to him that Zelda was the woman who had broken into the mansion. It turned out that she had been secretly following Benny and discovered his relationship with Zelda. Jealous of Zelda, the cousin sought to use Theo to eliminate her romantic rival. At that moment, Benny and Zelda, having just completed their wedding, reluctantly parted ways. However, as Zelda waited for the subway, she was suddenly grabbed from behind, her mouth and nose covered. The assailant was none other than Theo, consumed with hatred. When Zelda awoke, She found herself in Benny's family mansion. Determined to defend herself, she broke apart a wooden coat hanger, fashioning a sharp stake from the splintered wood. Suddenly, a hauntingly beautiful piano melody echoed from nearby. Drawn to the sound, Zelda cautiously followed it. Before she could get close, however, Theo intercepted her. Fearing that Theo might harm Zelda, Benny disregarded all objections and insisted on taking her home. But Theo stopped him, coldly stating that if Zelda left now, she would never see her father and brother again. Theo revealed that he had manipulated the policewoman into abducting Zelda's father and brother, framing them for the murder of the high-ranking official's daughter. At that moment, Benny's family gathered to decide Zelda's fate. After all, they were the ones who had started this war. Benny's mother demanded that he make a choice, reminding him that, for centuries, they had been his true family. The cousin's intense reaction stemmed from a dark truth. She was the progenitor of the entire vampire lineage. Centuries ago, Benny's family had been ordinary humans. One day, the cousin's family was brutally killed, each member impaled through the heart with wooden stakes. The cousin narrowly escaped death and fled to Benny's house in the dead of night. Benny, kind and compassionate, not only comforted her but also repaired her broken doll. For the grieving girl, Benny's kindness was a beacon of hope amidst her despair. With an innocent smile, she asked Benny if he would marry her when they grew up. Thinking it was just a child's whim, Benny casually promised. But to the cousin, it was a vow. Desperate to stay with Benny forever, she secretly entered his room while he was asleep. She cut her palm and let her blood drip into Benny's mouth. As the blood coursed through his veins, Benny's pupils changed color, and his heart raced uncontrollably. Disoriented, Benny stumbled out of his room. When he noticed Theo's door ajar, he entered without hesitation. Driven by an uncontrollable thirst, he grabbed Theo's sleeping girlfriend and bit into her neck. Then, unable to stop himself, he sank his teeth into Theo's neck as well. Their mother, awakened by the screams, rushed over, only to meet the same tragic fate. After Benny had killed his entire family, the cousin finally revealed herself. Calm and collected, she cut Benny's palm and fed his blood to each of his family members. Soon, they all revived, but as immortal bloodthirsty creatures. The cousin believed that this act would bind Benny to her forever. Yet centuries passed, and Benny still felt no romantic love for her. Consumed by jealousy, the cousin hated every woman Benny loved. She even secretly unplugged the life support machine of Benny's human girlfriend, hastening her death. The cousin soon shifted her focus to Zelda, plotting to eliminate her using Theo's wrath. To protect her father and brother, Zelda had no choice but to confess to Theo that she was the one who had killed his girlfriend. Theo stared at Benny in disbelief, demanding to know if he had known the truth all along. Benny and Zelda fled to the mansion's entrance, but the blinding sunlight stopped Benny in his tracks. In a desperate move, Zelda ripped down the curtains and draped them over Benny, shielding him as they made their escape. However, just as Benny stepped outside, the cousin caught up to him. Ignoring the flames that consumed her body under the sun's merciless rays, she clung to him tightly. Meanwhile, Theo, consumed by vengeance, took Zelda's father and brother to the morgue. There, he nailed each of them inside a coffin. When Zelda and Benny arrived, they saw one coffin already engulfed in flames. Fortunately, it turned out to be a close call. The coffins holding her father and brother had not yet been burned. As Zelda and Benny freed her family and prepared to leave, Theo suddenly appeared, with the policewoman blocking their escape route. Zelda, desperate to defuse the situation, knelt down and apologized, claiming she had only accidentally pushed Theo's girlfriend. Just as the policewoman was about to pull the trigger, Zelda's father rushed forward, disrupting her aim. Benny seized the moment to overpower everyone, ensuring their escape. Though they managed to flee, the cost was high. Zelda's father had been shot in the abdomen. The policewoman, having failed to help Theo and earning no reward of immortality, was left with nothing. Theo, consumed by despair, found himself at his girlfriend's grave. In a daze, he imagined her presence, her voice cutting through his anguish. She reminded Theo that Benny had found his true love, something Theo had always hoped for. Theo reflected on his centuries-long love for his girlfriend, their bond unwavering even through time. Understanding the pain of losing one's soulmate, he resolved to spare Benny from the same torment. But Theo no longer wished to continue his existence. After bidding his mother farewell, he ascended to the rooftop. There, the searing sunlight awaited him, its rays promising swift obliteration. With his eyes shut, he walked forward without hesitation. By the time his mother realized something was wrong, it was too late. All she could see was a trail of ashes, scattered by the wind on the staircase. Meanwhile, Zelda's father was critically wounded, his body drenched in blood. Benny struggled to suppress his bloodthirsty instincts, but he managed to regain control and assisted the siblings in extracting the bullet, saving Zelda's father from death's grasp. After their near-death experiences, Zelda's father decided it was time to reveal the truth about the past. He confessed that not only was her mother not killed by vampires, but she herself had been a vampire all along. Years ago, upon discovering his wife's true identity, Zelda's father, fearing for the safety of their children, had forced her to leave. However, her love for the children compelled her to secretly take them away with her. When he eventually found them, only his wife and son were present. Zelda was nowhere to be seen. Believing his wife had lost her humanity and killed their daughter, he lashed out in rage, driving a wooden stake through her heart. Unbeknownst to him, Zelda had merely gone to the convenience store to buy ice cream. Zelda and her brother were left in shock, struggling to accept that their father had deceived them for so many years, and worse, that he was the one responsible for their mother's death. Despite the painful revelations, life had to go on. Zelda and Benny decided to leave this cursed place and start anew somewhere no one knew them. But just as they prepared to depart, Benny's mother appeared, grief-stricken and desperate. She begged him to stay, saying she couldn't bear to lose another son. The sorrow etched on her face made Benny immediately realize something had happened to Theo. Tears welled up in his eyes, but when he turned to Zelda, he made his decision. No matter the pain, he would leave this place with her. Zelda's older brother, however, had been indoctrinated since childhood to believe that vampires were soulless monsters. Even after learning the truth about their mother, his prejudice remained unshaken. Benny, caught off guard, was suddenly impaled through the heart by the brother's stick. Summoning his remaining strength, Benny urged her to stop the cycle of hatred, to ensure no more blood would be spilled. Benny's mother, consumed by grief and rage, had bitten Zelda's brother. Hearing her cries of pain, Benny, barely alive, mustered all his strength to rise. With one swing of a wooden plank, he knocked his mother unconscious just as she was about to strike again. Yet Zelda was already gravely wounded, bleeding profusely. Zelda's father later buried them together side by side, a final act of reconciliation for the shattered family. But when night fell, eerie sounds began emanating from the graveyard. Suddenly, a hand burst through the soil. It was Zelda, reborn as a vampire rising from the earth. Not every story ends in the light. What would you risk for love or revenge? Subscribe for more movie recaps where the line between prey and predator vanishes into the dark.